Max, normally we would spend this segment doing our power poll.
Yeah.
But it's whenever there's breaking news like this, we always want to stop down and acknowledge it and kind of break it down. And there was big news that came down yesterday, about 4 o'clock-ish afternoon. I texted you about it. You were out.
Maybe a little bit earlier. The funniest part was, I had just left home, and you're like, hey, this just happened. Do we have photos? Do we have that? And I'm like, well, here's the thing. I literally just left my house, and I will be gone till like 9.
The news is that Sean Kugler, the head coach of the UTEP Miners, is no longer the head coach of the UTEP Miners. He stepped down. From what we understand from Brett Bloomquist of the El Paso Times, says that he stepped down. It was a mutual decision, which makes me think that the administration came to him and said, look, you're going to be out of a job. You can decide how you go.
Right.
And so Sean Kugler is out as the head coach of the UTEP Miners. It's the first college football coaching change of 2017, the entire year. So across the nation.
For Texas.
In the nation.
What about Hugh Freeze?
Do you count that? That happened before the season started, though, right?
Well, yeah.
That's what
yeah.
So
okay.
This is
all right.
season.
All right.
We're
Fair
calling
enough. Fair enough.
So here's the basics. Sean Kugler was in his 5th year here at UTEP. He was previously the offensive line coach for the Pittsburgh Steelers. He's a UTEP alum. He played at UTEP. He was brought in to take over for Mike Price when he retired. He took over the program and kind of scuffled at the beginning. Went to a bowl his 2nd year.
Yep.
But since then, it's been pretty much downhill. 7-6 in 2014 was his high water mark. But overall, he leaves with a record of 18-36, which is not good, and not good enough to keep your job after 5 years, in my opinion. Beyond that, it had really come to a head this year. They're 0-5. They lose to Army. The offense is non-existent, although we saw some flashes from Q Wadley.
Right. I mean, I think when we were talking about this yesterday, I was kind of like, well, in a way, watching Q Wadley run was a lot like watching Aaron Jones run, and you're sitting there going, oh, I can see it again. Here we go. They can do this. They want to run first. Here's the running back. They've got a running back again. Maybe this will be it again. But then again, you're also just sort of falling into that same trap. The
defense has nosedived. They are, I think, bottom 10 in the nation. And more importantly, I wrote about this on TexasFootball.com. More importantly, their losses have an ugly aesthetic to them.
Yeah.
They're ugly losses. When they lost to Rice, it was ugly. When they went on the road and got drubbed by their arch rival, New Mexico State, it was ugly.
Yeah.
There's just a lot of ugliness around the way that they're playing football right now. And I think that has a lot to do with what Sean Kugler tried to install at UTEP. When he came in, he had a very clear vision for what he wanted UTEP to be. We're going to line it up and run it right at you, and we're going to play good defense. That's what he wanted. And it's important to note that at times, they did that.
Right.
Maybe not at the same time.
Right.
But they did that.
Yeah.
Aaron Jones is a perfect example.
Yeah.
Aaron Jones was one of the most electrifying, fun-to-watch, productive running backs in the nation.
Yeah.
Last year and then 2 years before that.
Right before the injury.
Before the injury. I mean, he was a solid, outstanding, not just for a Conference USA team, I mean for any team.
Yep.
He was an outstanding running back. The defense at times was good. In 2014, when they went to a bowl game, they were 39th in the nation in total defense, which doesn't sound amazing, but is pretty good. And they were 18th in turnover margin.
They developed at least one really great lineman.
They did.
Will Hernandez might be a first-round pick this year.
Correct. Their guard. But the bottom line is that it never came together all at once.
Yeah.
Now, there was a debate, and I was having a debate with Kevin Cassis, our buddy, about this on Twitter, because Carlos Silva out there in Lubbock had some comment about how El Paso fans of UTEP wanted Sean Kugler to recruit more kids from El Paso. And he has. There are something like 26 El Paso kids on the roster right now. They are not the reason that UTEP is bad.
Right.
I mean, one thing, the biggest reason that UTEP is bad right now and you might want to shield your earmuffs for me, El Paso fan, is that UTEP's kind of always been bad.
Right.
UTEP, it's very hard to win in El Paso. Part of the reason is that it feeds on itself, right? You get recruits when you're good, and they just haven't been consistently good over the years. That's part of it. Geography is another part of it. El Paso is way out there.
Right.
It's kind of a part of the state, and a part of the country we kind of forget about. And fair or not, there is this completely wrong misconception that El Paso is somehow dangerous.
Right.
Because it's close to Juarez.
Right.
El Paso is here. The fact is, El Paso is the safest large city in America.
Yeah.
That is, you can Google that.
Yeah.
It is the safest large city in America. It is difficult to win in El Paso because it is hard to recruit kids to come to El Paso. When I had all my conversations with Sean Kugler, which were all very pleasant. He's just a no-nonsense kind of football guy, but he was always very pleasant. Yeah. I went out there in 2014, and 2014, maybe 2015. It was for I think it was for the 2015 summer book. I went out there to write a feature about El Paso. I talked with him. I had a great sit-down. And he brought up the point. He goes, listen, the toughest thing about recruiting is getting them here.
Yeah.
You just have to convince them to come here. Once they come here, they love it.
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
I do love El Paso. Like, it's beautiful. It's just difficult to get them there because I think people think El Paso, and they go, ugh, El Paso? Why would I go there?
Right. I think Ishmael Johnson, our colleague, made a good point this morning in our little Slack conversation about this. It's like you can't treat you're a school within Texas. You should be able to recruit Texas kids. You might as well be in Arizona.
It is an outpost in the middle of in that kind of no man's land.
Yeah, wherever you're coming from in the state of Texas, especially the football hotbeds, it's an 8 to 10 hour trip.
It's very difficult to recruit there. So whereas you're saying, oh, well, Texas State can recruit.
Right.
Yes, that's because they're in San Marcos and they're right on 35.
Yeah.
Like
really
they're
easy.
on I-10, 400 miles that way.
Yeah.
So that's part of it. It's just difficult to win in El Paso. Few teams have ever done that. In fact, if you go to College Football Reference, they have what they call a simple ratings system, which basically just takes their record and measures it against their strength of schedule and comes up with a basic metric. In 80 years, do you know how many times they've been above average? 11. It's just not good. Wow. El Paso, like UTEP, it's just hard to win in El Paso.
Yeah.
It's hard to win there, and Sean Kugler kind of found that out the hard way. That is not to absolve Sean Kugler of blame.
Right.
Okay? His teams often looked unprepared. They looked overmatched.
Right.
They did not find ways to cover up their deficiencies. And ultimately, that's what cost him his job. Not UTEP itself. Sean Kugler cost himself his job. And that I really believe that. I don't want to absolve him of blame. I'm just stating a fact that it's difficult to win in El Paso. It is not, I believe, impossible.
No.
It is not impossible, and a change needed to be made because this team was floundering. This program was floundering. I believe Brian Natkin is going to take over as the interim head coach for the remainder of the season. It's a lost season. Okay, they're gonna go probably something like 1-11 or 2-10 maybe. They might go 0-12. They're a bad football team. So that's the post-mortem on Sean Kugler. He tried to install a system that different pieces of it worked at times, but it never worked in concert.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the future. Let's talk about where UTEP goes from here. First of all, I believe they're without an athletic director, so they got to hire an athletic director first. That's problem number one. UTEP, I think, needs to embrace the fact that it is difficult to recruit there. It is essentially like recruiting to a place like Navy.
Right.
Okay? You are never going to get the top, or not never, but you're very rarely going to get the top-tier athletes to come play for you. Okay? Just because of geography. Same reason, in a lot of respects, you could compare them to Hawaii, right?
Right.
Because it is this outpost, it's hard to get people to recruit there. And Hawaii has a beach.
Right.
You know, like they have an easier time. It's a lot closer to recruiting to a place like Northwestern, right? Which has recruiting barriers because they have very high academic standards.
Right. But at
or
least
Rice.
they have the Power 5 thing.
They have the Power 5. It's like recruiting to Rice.
Right.
It's very difficult because of their thing. It's like recruiting to Wyoming or Idaho, okay?
Right.
Because of that, there are recruiting restrictions that they're going to have that they're never going to get away from.
Yeah.
As a result, I think UTEP needs to go a little bit crazy. And I think UTEP, you're exactly right. You need to, if there's any school that can kind of eschew the idea that you need a Texas guy with Texas ties, it is UTEP because they are on an island.
You're an outpost.
You're an outpost. Yeah. So it is not imperative. It's helpful, but it's not imperative to hire a guy with Texas ties. I think they need to go a little bit crazy. I think they need to go one of two ways. One, triple option.
Right.
You go with a guy who is going to install an offense that you use when you don't have the kind of talent that you need to really like to compete in the Conference USA, right? You go with a guy like and Ishmael brought this up in our Slack chat. You go with a guy like Ivan Jasper, who's the offensive coordinator at Navy.
Yeah.
Okay? And you install a triple option and you say, look, we're never going to get the 5-star guys to come here. Let's work with 3 stars in a system that is difficult to defend.
Right.
And look, it works. It works at Navy.
Yeah.
It works in New Mexico.
It works at Georgia Tech.
It works at Georgia Tech.
Yeah.
And is that going to get you to a national championship? Probably not. But you know what? Get you to 9 wins.
Yeah.
It'll get you to be a competitive team in Conference USA.
Yep. And
when you do that, when you start winning consistently, that's going to bring in better recruits.
Right.
And guess what that's going to do? Make you win more.
Yeah.
That's option one. The other option is you go the complete opposite direction. And you say, we are going air raid. We are going 5 wide. We are going crazy offense.
Yeah.
We are going Mike Leach.
Right.
Or we are going Art Briles. Don't hire Art Briles.
Yeah.
We're going something like that. And there's a couple of names there that are interesting. Who brought it up? Adam Bodecker brought up Hal Mummy.
Yeah.
Do you go to a guy like that?
You'd instantly be a national treasure with the college football media too.
Let me tell you the first call I make.
Okay.
I make a call to Graham Harrell.
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
The offensive coordinator at North Texas.
Yeah.
He's in his second year there at North Texas. He's a young guy. He can be the kind of guy that I think he has head coaching aspirations. I think you make a call to Graham Harrell, and you say, look, you can run this offense however you want. And you turn it into, he can become Cliff Kingsbury light.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you run this 5-wide offense that is air raid, and you go. Now, look, North Texas doesn't run an air raid.
Right.
They run a spread.
Right.
But I think part of that is because Seth Luttrell is also an offensive guy, and so I think this is the merging of those two guys. I think you go to Graham Harrell and you say, look, you can run this offense however you want.
Go full Leach on it.
Go full Leach on it. Exactly. Yeah. I think those are the two directions you can go. Because you have to set, if you are UTEP, you have to set yourself apart. You cannot play by the same rules that every other team in the state plays by. You are a unique situation. You are a beautiful snowflake, and I love you. But you are a unique situation, and you need to find a way to operate outside of the bounds of the normal college football rules. Yeah. I'm very sorry it didn't work out for Sean Kugler. Yeah. I always enjoyed my interactions with him. I think he's a good guy. I think he cares deeply about UTEP.
Yeah.
And I think that goes a long way out there.
Yeah.
Because as hard as it is to recruit players out there, it's also hard to recruit coaches out there.
Yeah.
And so I think he cares very deeply about that. And I think he cares about that community. I'm very sorry it didn't work out for him. But he found out the hard way. Yeah. It is very difficult to win at UTEP. It's very difficult to win in El Paso.